Okay, so today I would like to talk about blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and the importance that they're going to have in our future generation, in the future of our humanity, and how they're going to be integrated into us to create an entirely new platform for our existence. So, what does that look like? If you've been paying attention over the last 10 years, you would have noticed how cryptocurrencies have become extremely popular. Most people who maybe aren't educated or who are more old school discount them, ignore them. They believe they're just a Ponzi scheme, that they're a fraud, that they don't exist, and they try to associate cryptocurrencies with investment and money. And they fail to realize that what's holding cryptocurrency together, what's underlying cryptocurrencies, is blockchain. And blockchain is it is the technology which is going to underpin a lot of what is going to happen in the next industrial revolution, whatever you want to call it, the fourth revolution, whatever you want to call it. The same as the steam engine, the same as the invention of the radio, the same as the invention of the internet. Blockchain is the next key piece in the evolution of humanity. And for those that don't know what blockchain is, I'll just try to give you a real small summary. Blockchain is a mathematical computer method of verifying a transfer of data with a decentralized system of authentication. You authorize transfer of data, and it could be cryptocurrency, it could be information, it could be anything. But it's done in a way so that no one can fudge it, no one can create fraud on it. And it's done through these things called ledgers, and they're decentralized. And then they have to be, through cryptography, they have to be checked against one another. And based on that, they're able to verify the validity of that transaction or cryptocurrency. It's a real simple kind of explanation. There's a lot of math behind it. And a lot of that math is basically, how do you say, it's encryption math. So this is nothing new. It's just that this sort of mathematics of encryption has now paired up with things like a token or a piece of data that's meant to be exchanged or validated, and it's being put up on the internet using miners and other forms of validating the transaction. Now, there's mining is one way. There's what's the other one called? Stake, something stake. Anyways, there's about 3 or 4 methods to, there's Tangle. Each kind of cryptocurrency tends to use their own in-house method of validating a transaction. Bitcoin relies on miners, and I think Dash relies on another method, and I forget, there's another one that relies on proof of stake as one. And Tangle is another one. Anyways, there's a variety of ways to validate a transaction using cryptography and so forth. But whatever, that's just the nuts and bolts of it, and that information's out there. You could research it. You could find it out for yourself if you want to really do a deep dive. The point that I'm trying to make is that this is going to underpin the next piece of the technological evolution that we're going to go through in our humanity. And why is that important? Why is that really important? Well, at no other time historically have we been in a position, technologically speaking, given cell phones, given Wi-Fi, given the fact that there's satellites out there now providing Wi-Fi, the power of our cell phones, and not just the objects themselves, but our attention to them, our dependability on them. We depend on these things now like never before, and we're stuck on them. So in a way, it's become a perfect opportunity to now basically ensnare us, so to speak. I mean, if we use other more polite terms, but another opportunity to collectively gather us together under one system. Okay, so, and as you're starting to see, if you've been paying attention to the news and what's being talked about, it seems like the narrative or the stories that you are being given seem to have this incredible unity. So if you look at every country, whether it's France, Australia, Canada, the US, Europe, these governments seem to be pushing the one story, the one narrative. And again, that is evidence. That is a key. That is what you call a tell, that shows you that this is a united front, that this is something that's been agreed on, colluded. And you know, if you look at it, for that to happen, the amount of collusion has to be huge. So not only do you have to have media constantly putting the message out and making sure that that message is on point and censoring things that distract from it, you also have to have tech companies like Facebook, like Twitter, like YouTube, like Google, censoring anything that doesn't fit into the narrative. So the technocrats have to be on board, big media has to be on board, and governments have to be on board. And who rules governments really? If you think Joe Biden's in charge, or Pierre Trudeau's in charge, or Macron's in charge, or pick any leader you want, you think they're in charge, they're not really in charge. They are taking marching orders. Where are these marching orders coming from? I don't know. But the fact that they are all working together, the fact that they're all presenting their stories in the same way, in the same narrative, ought to tell you, at what other time in history have you seen all these leaders agreeing to this small set of rules and narratives? Never. And the only way that can come about is if at some higher level they've been colluded. And what did that look like? How did it happen? I don't know. But there's other forces at work. Now, so let's get back to the cryptocurrency, the blockchains, and how that's going to completely revolutionize our existence as humans, and how that's almost going to be the wedge, the foot in the door that's going to put us into this transhumanist state. If you've been following, again, if you listen to Carl Schwab and his Great Reset book, he talks about he talks about transhumanism. And a lot of people focusing on transhumanism. Now that's a scary term, because like, who doesn't want to be human? Who wants to be a cyborg? Well, if you look at the history of evolution and how humans have evolved, and if you believe in the theory of evolution, that we've all are descendants from chimps and so forth, then you could see that there's like, wow, how did we become this sophisticated organism that's so different from an orangutan, that's so different from a chimpanzee? Well, there's evolutionary steps that take place. This point in time with what is happening in front of us is now basically the next quantum leap into our next evolutionary state of this transhumanist period, where we begin to merge with machines and AI. And you might laugh at it, you think it's crazy, but if you think about it, for the last 20 years or so, we've been doing that. We've been doing that with our computers, we've been doing that with our cell phones. If you look at the last 5 years especially, and how cell phones have become such an important part of our lives. They're natural extensions of who we are. That, we don't even, write letters anymore. We don't send postcards. We post things on Instagram, and we have followers and subscribers, and we communicate our messages like this through YouTube or what have you. We have a social media network that's now like growing and expanding. It's not just YouTube. We have other platforms that are expanding. So we are digitizing ourselves, our thoughts, our ideas, how we communicate are all being digitized into a format that can be not just shared with other people on platforms, but can also be used as data by big data, big tech companies to study our behavior, to understand how we think, and therefore it will enable them to also, on the other hand, understand how our behavior can be altered. And you see that already, because they've been collecting our personal data for so long, analyzing it, running it through mathematical models in a way that they now have a very good map. They have a very good lay of the land on how to approach ultimate control and tyranny. I call it tyranny because all this control will stay in a very small group of people. And democracy as we know it will just become an illusion. And we're already seeing it. We're not living in a democracy anymore. And I don't think we've been really living in a democracy for a few years. But especially now, I think if you haven't caught on to the fact that we're not living in a democratic society, then I don't know where you've been. So, okay. Now, cryptocurrency, blockchain, how does that affect us? And again, most people think they ignore it, whatever, doesn't mean anything to them. If they're going to buy things, they're going to buy gold, they're going to buy stocks, they're going to buy hard assets. They're not going to buy some imaginary funny money on a blockchain. But that's not the point of blockchain. That's not the point of cryptocurrency. Because as you're going to come to realize, with this new order, this new industrial revolution, this transhumanist agenda. And also, I have to do a little segue here for you to understand the next point, is for quite a number of years, maybe 20 or 30 years, scientists have been studying how nanoparticles injected into our bodies, either through our lungs or through injections or whatever, could be used to sense or become sensors in our bodies to then transmit data. So everyone knows what a sensor is. Okay, when you get into your car and you turn on your car, you see how much gas is in the tank, you see the temperature, you see all this information that's being put in front of you. Where did that information come from? When you take your car to a shop and they plug in that little box that they run through the computer, and the computer tells them everything about your car, how does that information get there? Well, it's sensed. There are sensors everywhere detecting all kinds of data that that gets brought back to this computer, and then a technician can look at it, and then they can determine, okay, this is why your car is not running right, or so forth. Well, scientists for 10, 20, 30 years now have been developing nanotechnology, which can interact with us biologically, which could become sensors and then transmit that data back to their computers. And you might think it's crazy, but it's not. It's out there. If you look at it, if you study it, if you dig, you'll find it. So now we have this technology that could become sensors that interact with our biology to transmit data to a database, okay, through our cell phones, obviously, because there's a Bluetooth kind of microwave connection between the sensors and our cell phone, which can pick up the data. Then the data gets transmitted to the cloud via Wi-Fi or what have you. And now we have blockchain, we have cryptocurrency. So now we can actually gather all this data in a meaningful way, and we can identify each individual according to their ID, because once you have the digital ID, you have the sensors in the body transmitting the data to the phone, which goes to the cloud. It's paired to an ID. Now we are data providers 24/7 to this cloud through the blockchain, and we could be monitored. Okay, so this idea of social credit score, so forth, from China, etc. Well, yeah, it's part of it, right? I mean, that's obviously going to come into play. But the bigger picture is now you can cut out all the middlemen. You can cut out everything, because if that succeeds, if this transhumanist step succeeds, what will happen now is you could foresee every consequence now. You could technically have finances put onto your account based on the biometric data that you provide. So let's say you're an Amazon worker working in a warehouse, and you're lifting boxes, you're doing your chores and so forth. Through that biometric data, the cloud, the AI, will be able to know whether you completed a task or didn't, how many hours you worked, how many times you went to the bathroom, what your heart rate was. It could determine all things about your data, and it transmit it to the cloud, and then a decision, a contract will be made such that if you meet these requirements, then you will be paid out. Right? So today, you go to a job, you're expected to do certain duties, certain tasks, you complete your 8 hours a day. At the end of the week, you get paid, etc. It gets deposited right into your bank account. Well, in the future, that's not how it's going to work. You're going to get paid in cryptocurrency, central currency, whatever it is, tokens, and those tokens, or that cryptocurrency, will be paid out based on your performance that you will provide through this interaction between these sensors in your body, your QR, your digital ID, and the cloud, and those that control it. So this is the next big step of us being subjugated to this blockchain reality that will function like a matrix, because once it becomes firmly in place, once the majority of individuals are now trapped in that system, and all the other strings get cut. So let's say you won't have access to cash anymore. You won't be able to have hard cash. So how will you be able to make a transaction without the AI knowing that you just made a transaction? So if you wanted to buy something, I mean, today, if you can, go buy something on Craigslist, a guitar or something, and you contact the seller, you meet somewhere, and you play the guitar or whatever, you think it's okay, and you give them this, the money, the $500-$600 or what have you. That transaction's between you and them. Okay, in the future, that's not how it's going to work. In the future, every transaction will be monitored, and it will be assessed, and it will be understood through the AI system. The AI system will know how much you spent. They will know how much what you bought, because both parties will be part of that net. And what if that AI decides that they don't want that transaction to happen? What if the AI said, you know what, we don't want you to buy that guitar. There's too many guitars on the planet. And you know what, you already have too many guitars. Transaction denied. Yeah, that could happen. It could happen with any transaction. Let's say you wanted to go buy an airline ticket online, and you had to use this same system of a cashless technology to purchase your airline ticket. And for some reason, the AI determined that you didn't complete certain tasks, or that you've traveled too much already, or you've had already your quota. You've already been on one vacation, so why do you need to go somewhere else right now? You don't have government permission. This is not for work. And so the AI will determine that maybe your request is invalid, and it will say transaction denied. All of a sudden, you start to realize, holy shit, where am I? But it will happen slowly. It will happen in such a way that your rights and freedoms will be so eroded that you won't even notice them. You'll just, this will become a privilege, and you'll be glad that you actually got your 2 weeks holiday, if you even get that. So this is how transhumanism will creep into our lives, how transhumanism will eventually wedge itself into our biology in such a way that we become assimilated. I keep thinking of that episode in Star Trek with the Borg, that resistance is futile, you will be assimilated. Well, nothing can be so close to home that is so appropriate, except we're not going to look like Captain Picard with all the fancy gadgets in our face. It's going to be seamless. We won't even notice it, because the Borg will be inside us. It will be in our veins. It will be in our biology. It will be interacting with us biologically and sending data, what it senses, to the digital ID, and then to the AI, which will then understand everything. And that AI, that brain, will be able to, in real time, know exactly what's going on with the planet, with the people who are linked in with that system. So just think of millions and millions, billions of people who are tethered through their digital ID to the cloud, run by an AI that could know in an instant what is going on, where money, I guess you're not going to call it money anymore, or tokens, how exchanges are being done, supply chains are being done, this ultimate control of the entire planet. You could see it now, because we are providing all the data that's necessary to build that system. So understand where we're going. Understand that this is the future. I don't think we can actually get out of it. I think the momentum is so fast, so hard, that even if they don't completely succeed in this wave of what's happening right now with digital IDs, and they call it the Vax Pass, but it's not really that. It's obviously something greater that I just described. If they don't succeed this time, they will keep pushing. They will keep going. And what I mean by they is that small group of elites, the people that are actually trying to monopolize the entire planet to their benefit, and then keep us all under control. So be aware and try to make intelligent choices. If you want to stay out of this, try to stay out of it. Don't get vaccinated. Don't download any government app. Go to a flip phone. You can do this. Try to form groups with friends where you think alike, and try to look at ways to avoid this. But it's happening. Whether you succeed or not, I don't know. Maybe you'll just buy yourself some more time. And maybe that's all we can do for the moment, is buy ourselves some more time. As far as the future generation, unless something incredible happens, some great epiphany, some great interjection, like the aliens come down, we get hit by an asteroid, or there's some wild card event that interrupts this evolutionary step, I feel that within the next 100 years, we'll all be tethered to a digital ID that feeds the AI that then controls our lives, and we'll basically have no real freedoms anymore. We'll all just have privileges, and those privileges will be based on our behavior and what we do, and whether we make correct decisions or incorrect decisions, and we either get rewards or we lose some privileges. That's how it's going to turn out. So tell me what you think. Leave me a comment. Do you think I'm crazy? I should be wearing a tinfoil hat? Or do you see even a slice of truth in what I've been telling you? And what can we do about it? Can we do anything about it? And if this is how it's going to be, how are you going to position yourself? Okay, I'm going to leave the country. I'm going to, live in Costa Rica now. Okay, good. You bought yourself some time. And maybe you'll be able to live into your 80s or 90s without being, tagged by this QR code. Great, you made it. But how about the next generation, your kids, your grandkids, and so forth? Are they going to make it? Or are we seeing the collapse of humanity into this transhumanist form for which there'll be no way back? You tell me. Until next time.